Good morning. Hi, Dana. I'm excited too. We still have 1 more minute, so I'm just hanging out, kind of getting ready, and I'm excited to share this with you. It's something I've wanted to share for a while, but it's a little bit tricky, and it takes a long time to dry, so that's why I have not shared it yet, but I'm really excited to show masking fluid and talk about it. And it's 10:59, so I'll say hello to Emily too. Dana and Emily, you guys have been so steadfast every morning. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you, and I'm so excited for day 23 and unbelievable. Just absolutely every day I talk about time and I just can't believe how fast it goes by. It's boggling my mind. So can't think of much better ways to spend the time than painting and being in the studio, honestly. So it is 11. Yay, that means we get to get started. So hello, everyone. I'm Kae Pea. I'm here in my studio, the Moon and the Maker, home of RubberMoon Art Stamps. And we are celebrating World Watercolor Month all month long. Libby, yay, good morning. Anyway, so we are going to be working with the same materials that we've been working with. 300-pound cold press watercolor paper. This brand happens to be Fluid brand. So the brand of paper is Fluid, Fluid. I'll show you what the packaging looks like. If I can grab it here. But again, this is 300-pound. Okay. I do think that we have some listed on my page of favorite art supplies. So you can find that there. Again, cut to size 3 by 4 inches. I'm using my watercolors that I've been using every day. And the only thing that's a little bit different now is I'm going to be using this core masking fluid. Okay. So a couple of things I will tell you about the masking fluid. Well, I'm going to be using the silicone tipped applicator. You can use a brush, okay? But if you use a brush, then you want to make sure that you're not using a nice expensive brush because it will ruin your brushes, okay? So this product has latex in it. So if you are allergic to latex, then you may, not want to use it or use it with caution. Make sure you read the directions. It does say right on it, natural rubber latex exposure may cause allergic reactions in sensitized individuals. So, there's ways that you can, still work with it, but just be aware and, follow directions or follow what you need to do to work with latex. Anyway, again, I'm using a silicone tipped tool called a color shaper. I don't know if you can see that on there. If you do not have a color shaper, I'm going to recommend that you use some ink picks, okay? Because again, these are very inexpensive and they're disposable. So if you, use them and ruin them, you won't feel as badly as you will if you ruin a good brush. So if you use a brush, Okay, say you use like a little detail brush, and it is really nice to be able to brush this stuff on. But if you use a brush, you're going to want to dip your brush in dish soap. Okay, really get the dish soap all within the bristles. That means like, so get a small little, maybe a dish, something like this, and put some dish soap in it and really get the dish soap into your bristles. Okay, and then when you dip into this stuff, it will not stick. Like it won't stick to your brush. After, you should be able to wipe it gently out and then still be able to use your brush for masking fluid applications. I still, even though you can use the brush with dish soap and it will clean it out, it still will have a tendency to mess up your brush. So make sure you're using just a cheapie or, something that you don't mind being only for masking fluid. Okay. So I know I seem kind of really emphatic about that, but I just want to let you know some of the drawbacks of using masking fluid. So many times, like depending on the brand, this is sort of a, I don't know what, it kind of has a little bit of a beige. I mean like an off-white cast. It's very milky. Some of these are tinged with a color like blue or pink. Okay. So that you can kind of see it a little bit better on your paper. It doesn't matter. It won't stain your paper if it's tinged with a color. But again, this one is pretty much just a milky color, but you can tell the difference, and you'll be able to see when I put some down. Now, both of these are dry. I painted this on here. Okay, so I will just explain this process to you. And also I want to let you know this paper is 140 pound. Okay, so I was just doing some extra experimenting. So this is 140 pound and you can see it buckled just a little. But I did paint this on pretty thick. You can see that it is dry. I don't know if you can tell, it's still a little tiny bit milky in a couple spots. I don't think you can really see that. And I painted this on using my color shaper. So what I did was I stamped this Frida butterfly image. This is a Sandra Evertson image, and I think it's called Soul Sisters. And so I stamped it in permanent ink. I then did a wash of yellow and orange over the top. Okay, I let that dry completely because when you're using masking film, you want your paint to be 100% dry. It will not work if your paper is at all moist or wet. So this watercolor was dry overnight, and then I painted the masking film over the top of the wings. You can see where it's shiny. That's the masking film. Okay, it's completely dry now. When it was wet, it was very milky and opaque. You really you can't see through it when it's wet. So I painted this on about, oh goodness, at around, I want to say 10 or 9:45. So it has been sitting here for over an hour and it still has a couple tiny little milky spots. I know you can't really see them, but there's one right here and some a little bit right here. So I am going to not work on this one quite yet. I'm going to let it still set up just a little bit longer and we'll work on this one. Now this is on 300 pound, the 300 pound paper, and I stamped this moon face image. And I'm so sorry, but this moon face is only available through RubberMoon, the Moon Mail Club. I just happened to grab it and fill it in with masking fluid. I really like this image. So, but of course, whatever image that you want. So you stamp your image, it's on white paper. I then took my masking film and filled that in, and then I took and put dots all over the paper, and that's going to preserve the white of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp up another one, and I'm going to apply the masking film just so you can see. And again, this is on 300 pound watercolor paper. I'll just go ahead and do the same thing since working on that. I'm going to go ahead and use my permanent black ink pad, but any ink or whatever will work. Even if I wanted to stamp in watercolor, it would work as long as it's dry. Okay. The good thing about stamping in the ink right now is that it will be pretty much immediately dry. So I can go ahead and apply my masking film. Now, if you're at all concerned, I haven't let it set up at all, so I can hit it with a blow dryer just to make sure that it's dry really quick. All right, so I'm gonna, now you don't want to shake this, okay? It doesn't need to be shook or shaken. You can, if it has a tinge to it, like I said, some brands have a tint to it to make it a little bit easier to see. You can turn it upside down and maybe roll it gently between your palms for a minute to like sort of make sure all your tint is mixed thoroughly, but you do not want to shake it. You don't want bubbles in there. Again, it is latex based, a natural rubber latex, so you just want to take whatever precautions. Now I am going to, since I'm not using a brush, and remember for those of you who just came on here, if you do use a brush, use one that you do not care about and make sure that you fill the bristles with dish soap, and that will help it to not be permanently. It would be a brush that you'll want to use only for masking film, okay? So this is a silicone tip tool, and I'm just going to use it to sort of smear around or paint in the masking film. I'm using it pretty thick, okay, because I don't want any, if I have any little divots or little air bubbles in there, then my paint can seep through. The whole reason for doing this is to preserve the painted area or the image that you want underneath. Okay, and so I know that a lot of times when you're stamping, you can easily use paper to mask, but when you're painting over the top, paper will not work to mask off, right? So this creates a barrier that will make it so that you can paint layers and preserve what's underneath. The reason that I don't use this a lot is because it does take a lot set to, it's not really drying, but it's setting up. So, and a lot of times I'm a little more impatient, so I'll figure out other ways. But if you really want to be able to layer your paints and really preserve what's underneath, then this is definitely a technique a product that you're going to want to use. So can you see that? It's pretty opaque. I do have some air or some little bubbles, which I do want to be careful about, because if they pop, if those little air bubbles pop, it still can leave little open spots where paint can seep in. So a lot of times you might even want to do a second layer. If you do a second layer though, you need to be careful to not rub or scrape or anything, because you want to keep, that nice layer on there. You don't want to rub any of it away. So now I wanted to preserve some more white of the paper because I wanted some little stars, or just at least some indication of stars. So I just randomly took the tip of this tool and dipped it in there and did a variety of sizes of little dots. If you wanted to make star shapes, of course you could. If you wanted to stamp some more things on there, like stamp some stars and mask those off, that would be great too. Remember, if I had laid down a color, if I had painted this all with a wash of light blue or whatever color, just saying light blue for the sake of the demonstration. So if I had painted this whole thing light blue and then let it dry really, really well, 100% dry, and then masked off anything that I paint over, then it would be light, then I would be preserving the light blue. Right now, I'm preserving the white of the paper, okay? And in this case, I'm preserving the yellow and pink, or the yellow and orange on the wings, okay? So, of course, you're going to want to keep this covered and tightly capped when not in use, because when the air hits it, it will start to congeal. So you can see that in the lid already, okay, just from the air hitting that lid. So you can get some little globbies in there. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm still sort of getting over cold. And thank you so much for asking about Mr. Moon. No, he's still really not doing the best, and has really been feeling under the weather. So we've all sort of been a little cruddy around here, but but still good. We're happy, and just not 100% healthy right now, but that's okay. But thank you so much for asking. And we're on the mend, right? Mr. Moon's been way worse than me. So, okay. Anyway, sorry for getting off track. I happened to look up and see Puff's comment and got off track, like I do sometimes. All right. So these, as you can see, the difference. I didn't fill in all those dots the same, but you can see they look very milky compared to these, which almost have like a bit of a, I don't know, beigey, peachy kind of translucent color. And then obviously you can see in the face there, it is completely transparent now and shiny. Okay, so this, you can see that's pretty thick. I'm going to need to let this set aside. Probably, I'm going to say a good half hour, maybe even like 40 minutes. All right. So we're going to go ahead and paint. And I'm going to actually take just this nice brush. And you usually see me use this brush to paint my stamps up. I'm just going to decide what colors I want to use, and I'm going to do a little bit of a gradient, I think. Here I have a nice manganese blue. Now remember too, wherever I preserve the white of the paper, if I did a really pale, like yellow or something very, very light, like a light gray, or then when I remove the masking film, it's not going to show up very much. Okay. Which, I mean, that's really a personal preference, but it won't make that much of a difference if I leave the white of the paper and mask it off and use a real light color. So obviously using a little bit darker of a color will be more dramatic. And you definitely can see how it sort of resists it also, right? You can mop that up. And I would, before I remove the masking film, I would definitely make sure there's not a lot of pigment sitting on top of the masking film, because it can kind of stain the paper. So you have to be aware of that. So I would remove it with a thirsty brush gently, because again, you don't want to rub this too much. Just trying to achieve kind of a nice gradient there. And then, of course, it's going to be really important to dry really well before I start removing my masking foam. So I'm going to set that aside again. And I'm pulling out this. I have kind of this just cheapo piece of paper here. Just, I don't want to get my paint, my blue paint up on this. So now remember both. So I painted this, not preserving the white of the page. I'm preserving the pink and yellow. And of course I could do that by painting around the image, but this definitely has its advantages. It keeps it really pristine, and it makes it so that I can work wet and let it really flow and go right up to the line. So it definitely has its reasons for doing this. And I'm going to pick a color right now that I feel can go. Red would be really nice, or magenta, or if I wanted to work in like, oh, maybe a quinacridone gold or something like that. I don't know. Let me just see what I have here and what calls to me a little bit. Oh, I think I will try a little of this. What I never can remember the colors in here. This one is, well, I think this is burnt umber natural, actually. Or no, wait, transparent brown oxide. Yeah, this is transparent brown oxide. Not sure. Oh, I don't usually work in browns. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but oh, I'm just going to go with it because I have it here. And I might throw in a little magenta too. I want it to be sort of a, not dramatic, but I want you to really be able to see the difference between the masked area and the background. So I'm gonna really make it dark. Plus I wanted something that I could go over that orange with and would work. So the magenta and that, what did I call it? Transparent something, transparent brown oxide. A memory like a sieve. Now, keep in mind, if I wanted to keep going, okay, this is the neat thing about like the layers. So say I let this dry completely, okay, 100% dry, and then I stamp another image and I mask another image, I could go over it again and continue to build layers. You get a beautiful, almost like a batiqued look, very rich and deep if you can continue like putting down color, masking, painting, putting down something else, masking, painting. So, you could keep it going. But then again, that's not great for demo purposes because it will take a long time. And again, remember, I am working on this one is 140 pound, not 300 pounds. So that's why it is, buckling a little bit. Also, I will mention you do not want to, um, you do not want to use a blow dryer or heat set this in any way. Okay. If you blow dry it or you try to rush the masking film, the drying time, you will kind of like make it really stick to the paper in a way that you don't want. Okay. So I'm going to let this dry again really, really well. We're going to pull this one back out and see how it's doing. It's close, but not all the way. You want to make sure that your paper doesn't feel cool to the touch. So I'm going to let these dry for a minute, and then I'm just going to, I see a couple questions, so I'm going to answer some questions. So Puff said, are you using glass deviled egg dishes? Yeah, well, this is not a deviled egg dish. I think this was a candle holder, to be honest. I'm pretty sure, but I loved how it sort of had, sections. I mean, it's not really divided off, but I liked just the shape of it. I like the size of it, and I like that I could put my colors around and then use this for mixing area. So, and I bought this at the thrift shop for $1.50. It was, I think, well, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, no, it was $1.50. This one is a deviled egg platter, which I love for this. And I think this one was actually, I don't remember. But I think it was $10 and I got it on a half price sale. So I think I did pay 5 for it. But yeah, and what I really love is that these sort of stack and fit together on my table. Isn't that special? And then somebody else said, do I use masking fluid often? I do not to use it all the time because if I can find some pieces that I made, I will pull them out and show them to you. But I did a lot of layered pieces, and I made jewelry out of it, small little pieces about like so. And I did a lot of masking fluid layers. If I can find a piece, I'll pull it out and share it with you. Okay. Actually, this is still drying. I might have a piece in here. Give me 1 second and I'll show you if I can find it. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so this was a piece ago. I was going to make it into a barrette, like a hair clip. So, and this was not stamped or anything. This is all just freehanded. So you can see I painted the paper like a yellow color, and then I filled in all that with masking fluid, and then I put another coating of, or another layer of whatever, this pinky orange kind of color, and then, oh goodness, I think I must have layered and masked probably 2, maybe 3 times. It's been a long time since I did this piece, so I can't tell you exactly what colors, but that is what you can get from layering and masking with masking film. I will tell you though, I don't think this was watercolor. This was acrylic or acrylic ink. So this is great because you can use it with acrylic. All right. And I have some more pieces too. If I happen to find them, I'll pull them out and share them at a later time. Okay. I think I want to say that I do feel this is dry enough for me to start peeling off. I will tell you, and I don't have one here, sadly. I don't think. You can use your fingers to just gently start to peel this stuff off. Not really peel, but do you see that? Did you see that? And look how nice and white the paper is. These are small little pieces, so it would be no big deal to go ahead and do that and just kind of peel them off. But you do need to be gentle because sometimes you don't want to be too rough with it because it can pull the paper. And especially, I need to mention this too, if you're using cheap paper, this will work better on nicer quality paper. But yeah, you can use your finger. But if you have a lot of masking film, say you're working on a big piece and you have a lot of masking film on there, it will sort of start to hurt your finger. I know that, oh, and see, it tore the paper just a little bit. So I just need to be gentle, and I think it might still be just a tiny bit too damp. So another hazard of working too quickly. Okay. I'm going to still do it just because we're, demoing. But anyway, if you have a lot of masking film and you're working on a big piece, you might not want to use your finger because after a while it starts to rub your finger raw. So they make what's called a rubber cement pickup. And I have one. I'll show it to you. Let me grab it. Okay, so this looks really weird because we use it on rubber, so it would not be red. It's more like it's like a yellowy color normally. This one's really used. but this is what it looks like. It's kind of bumpy. It looks like an eraser, a bumpy eraser. And this is a rubber cement pickup, but it needs to be clean. If it's dirty at all, it will smear around your color. So you just want to make sure that if you use a rubber cement pickup, it's nice and new and clean. If it gets dirty on the edges, you can easily cut the edges off. Okay. I'm obviously not going to use this one because it's dirty, but I at least wanted to show you sort of what it looked like. Okay. Yes. I'm looking up here and Jan says, make sure your fingers are very clean and dry. So yes, definitely. And I'm going to keep going again. It might not be as perfect as I hope because I feel, but we're just going to go with it anyway. And I'm going to try to be gentle. And once you get a few of these up, like you can make a little, like it'll sort of start to ball up and you can almost use the pieces of that are coming off to sort of help peel away the other pieces. But you can see I am making a little bit of a mess because it's really not 100% ready, but it's going to give you the idea. And you're going to be more patient, hopefully, and have a little more time than I do because I'm just anxious to show it to you. I guess I could have just talked a little longer, but it's okay. Again, this piece probably won't go to the Smithsonian or the Museum of Modern Art, so I'm okay. And you can probably kind of see, you don't want to keep like rubbing all around because, some of that pigment will get on your finger and it will make your white spaces not so white. So just be aware of that. I think the main thing to convey to you is to be patient, really let things dry before you move forward. And, it's not too difficult in the studio when you're doing that because you can always set it aside and let it dry or, work on other things. And remember too, as long as I should have shown you this, but had not removed all those little dots and I could actually have added some more dots, let those dry, and then coated the whole thing with purple or darker or black or something even a darker value. And then what would have happened? What would have happened is then I would have had white dots when I removed everything, and then I would have had blue dots, right? So the more you continue to layer your paints and colors, your paints and then your masking film, the more variance of color you're going to get like this. Okay, I hope that makes a lot of sense. All right, let's go ahead and we'll do this face right now. Kind of wish I did have a rubber cement pickup, but I'm going to get it kind of started and hope that it just peels off pretty nicely. Now I'm a little painted the face with the masking film like yesterday, and then I put another coat over the top because it had some air bubbles. So I really want to be gentle because I don't want to, tear at the paper, which can happen. All right. I want you to be aware of that. And it's being kind of tough. And I really, really wish I had a rubber cement pickup right now. I feel like it would really help me a lot. And I feel like it's tearing at the paper just a little bit, which normally it really doesn't do. Okay. Of course, it's going to be a bit of a bear for my demo, but it's just sometimes things do not cooperate the way you want them to. So just going to have to bear with me. So yeah, it's pulling away my image a little bit. And I feel like if I go really fast, it will really pull it away. So that's why I'm being a little more cautious, or trying anyway. So you know what? Where's the other one I just set aside? I'm gonna see how it's doing because we might have. I'm gonna definitely want to work on this one to show you. I have a feeling since I let it set up too long that it really bonded to the paper. So in a way, even though I hate when I make mistakes in front of you, I also appreciate it because it's, it's real life, how things sometimes work in the studio, and it gives me a chance to share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So yep, I mean, as you can see, but it did mar my paper a little bit, and you can actually see it right on here. So maybe that was that could be kind of cool. It's kind of like a transfer. But anyway, no, very imperfect on this one. I will tell you, it probably is from letting it dry on there overnight. Like I said, it really, really bonded to that paper. So let's go over here and check out this one because I just painted this morning. I'm going to take and wipe away just a little bit of that pigment off the top. And you can see what was sitting on there. And then in just a couple minutes, this still has a little bit of wetness right here, but I will go ahead and peel this away. And we'll also, this one's still kind of milky. You can see that. So, and I want to peel that one away also if it dries in time, just so I can share that with you and hope for a little more success. Because this this is on my 300-pound watercolor paper. So I really feel like it should not have done that. A lot of times on thinner and cheaper papers is when I've run into that issue. So I'm not 100% sure. Maybe, I don't know. I've not had it really do that to me in all my time working on the 300-pound paper. This is also 300-pound paper, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and blot this just a little bit over here because everything seems good and dry except for right here. Much, much easier. Did not bond with the paper. Off. And voila, and no paper tearing or anything. Obviously, if I would have wanted to go in and color some like other patterns or stamp over the top, that leaving that masking film on during that time would be beneficial, obviously. So, and then of course you could go in and continue to paint, but one of the things that I kind of think is that I should have like painted this really the way I wanted it, then masked it off, and then painted over the top, and I could pretty much be finished instead of like taking off the masking film and going back in and touching anything up. This one's still a little bit wet. I hope that you can kind of still see where it's milky, because watching this in real time will kind of give you a feel for if you want to experiment and try it, or that you want to work with it, kind of seeing how long it takes and what it looks like in its in between stages is kind of helpful. I'm just taking a minute to read the comments again. So, oh, Dana, no, so this, I don't think I have the stamp here. I already put it away, which is shocking. I usually hoard them in my studio, but no, this is one stamp. It's called Soul Sisters, and it's from Sandra Everettson collection. And yeah, isn't the white the I mean, I realize that this was a fail and I'm sorry about that, but isn't the white really and honestly, a lot of this was a fail just because I didn't really wait quite long enough, but it's okay. I want you to see what can happen and you know, I'm here to show you and share with you, not necessarily try to make a masterpiece every time. And it's all about watercolor, right? So anyway, the white you preserve is really beautiful. And that's one of the things, you know, is saving the whites of the paper can be really important to not only to watercolor, but just to your composition and to overall appearance of a painting. So let's see what else. Does anybody else have any questions right now? So Alba, the face stamp, I am not sure of the name of it, but it is available for the Moon Mail Club only. I'm sorry to use a Moon Mail stamp. I really didn't necessarily mean to do that. It just, I really liked it and it was sitting there and that's what I happened to grab. So, um, yeah. Yes, Emily, I hope you have some masking film that you, or masking fluid. I shouldn't say masking film because masking film is different. It is masking fluid. And then this, it's funny how it looked really orange and yellow when it was just by itself. But once I masked it and put that other like uh, transparent brown oxide and the magenta, how pale that now looks. But it really, you know, preserves it beautifully. So of course I could go back in and paint some more or maybe you know use my colored pencils or just a variety of different things would be fun to still you know continue to work that layer. This is almost done enough to where I feel like I'm going to go ahead and give it all these are done. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little wash. Well, oh goodness, I don't really want to because then it's going to be really wet. Well, that's okay. I'm just going to do one quick layer. We're going to do, and if you do begin to paint on there before it's 100% set up, just so avoid, you know, dragging your brush across the top of it. Everything around the edges is dry enough for me. So I'm just working with this dark opaque color. And that's going to be just so you can see it. And it will really stand out. But of course, we do have to let it dry. So I don't know. I can just keep this, you know, here and do some other stuff. We can still visit if you want to hang out and watch. That's great. If not, I understand you have other things to do rather than watch paint dry. But if you know, if you want to come back and look, I'll definitely post a picture on Let's Get Makey and all that stuff. Um, but I'm going to go ahead and see it through. Okay. And I'm going to stay on here until I can do it. And I'll do other stuff. Yes, Puff, you definitely can learn from failures. That's how I've done all my learning. And Emily says, you have another brand. So yeah, great. Just you want to make sure that it's not real chunky, you know, if it's fresh. And again, you don't need to shake it up or anything. Yeah, and yes, I could touch up the moon. Libby said you can touch up the moon, right? And yes, I can, but my paper is a little bit torn. So frankly, if I was going to go ahead and try to fix this or make it work, I would probably use acrylic and not try to watercolor. Because if I try to watercolor this now, the paper is a little bit mottled. So I could still have fun with this, and I could easily do some acrylic painting over the top or some, you know, pet marker. Yeah, definitely, I can still fix this painting. Yeah. So, well, that's great, Dana. While I'm waiting, I'll go back into the butterfly and we'll just play with this while this is drying. Okay. I wish I had some really fun music to play for you while we were doing this, but And so this is something to think about as I'm, painting this, and I'm using a little bit of my transparent pyrrole orange, which is a nice, beautiful, beautiful orange. So say that I let those lines dry and then I mask those off, then I can layer another color. So I mean, it can be really tedious and take a lot of time. Invest that time, you can get some very beautiful, beautiful, rich effects and, a lot of really gorgeous, fun layers. And again, too, don't, you could easily also, if you wanted to do more mixed media, you can easily add some acrylic to these watercolor paintings if you want to. I am not prejudiced against any art supply or paint. Oh, I'm not prejudiced against anything, but definitely anything goes in the studio. Art supplies and paint and different mediums are all a go. But we're celebrating World Watercolor Month, so that's why I've really been focusing on that. Oh, yes. So that's it. I'm looking up at the comments again. I'm sorry, really quick. Emily says, I bought masking fluid to try to apply with an applicator over stencils. So, yes, I've done that before. I don't know if any of you remember. I also will use rubber cement over my stencils. So, because rubber cement will act similarly to this, so you can actually use rubber cement and sort of just brush that over your stencils, and it's pretty good. You can't. It's not quite as easy to work. Fluid is thinner and flows a little bit more like a paint. So, definitely keep that in mind when you're, uh, depending on how detailed your stencil is and stuff like that. But yeah, great idea, Emily, and that's awesome. It's just keep in mind it does take a little time, and can be a little tricky, but good. And so the only thing I think I see on this, and I really like the way she's turning out, I might want to darken up like her hair area with a little bit more of like a dark Payne's gray or something like that. But then definitely I feel like I would want to do something here. I don't know, in the background a little bit somehow. I don't know how. Maybe I would just do some, I don't know. Let's try maybe just some tone on tone butterflies maybe. So maybe I want to try to, and you could obviously use a stamp for this, but maybe I want to try to just emulate the shape of the butterfly. Oh, I'm not batting 1,000 with that shape, am I? But that's okay. Get the general idea. Oh no. And I don't know. I feel like I still want something, and maybe that would be a stamp. I don't know. I would continue to play with this and you know do something I actually really like. I like the butterfly, but um, I wasn't prepared to make a composition really. So because it wasn't about that. But then I look at it and I'm always like, oh, it really needs something. So let's like, maybe anchor it a little bit. Well, anyway, you get the deal. So you could just continue to play and paint and have fun with that. But the main thing I really was wanting to show you is how I could preserve all my underneath colors. And I think maybe this one will be good enough to go ahead and remove. I just want to, again, try to clean this off just a little bit because I don't want to pull purple into my white spaces. And go ahead. Pull and look, I do love that. I love being able to see that bright white pop out. And it is doing much better. Even I don't know. I don't know if it was just because that other one was still a little bit too wet, but I didn't have any of them tear or pull. And let's try this guy. Nope, this one's still, I don't know. I don't know if it's just too much. I don't have no idea why. I'm not going to lie to you. I am stumped. You saw me just paint this on and remove it. This is not wet. It should be pulling off really easily, but it's still pulling away some of my image. So I don't know. and it's still tearing my paper. So this one's actually even worse. So we're going to say that's a no-go. And I'm just going to have to experiment and come back to you on this because I've never, ever had this happen. So, but it didn't do it on the thinner paper. So I don't know if that's, but then again, this is 300-pound watercolor paper also. And I'm actually thinking, I'm going to be honest with you. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking because this paper was painted, it already had, the surface had already been painted, even though it was just with a wash and dried and then matte and then the masking film put on. So I'm having a feeling that it's something to do with so much of the film going straight directly to that stamped image. I don't know. It's a conundrum. I'm sorry for, you know, for that happening. I have to tell you, this would have happened even if I had pre-done this for you. Like, well, I did sort of pre-do it, but even if I had, because I would have thought, oh no, that's not, that was a fluke. And I would have still come on and done the same thing and it would still have happened. So that is a fail, my friends. But this was a success. So I'm going to go with the fact that it probably was painted paper, and I'm going to actually do it again. I mean, I won't do it here for you on camera, but I will come back and report the results because I'm actually going to stamp this image again right now, and I'm going to put a wash on it, and then I'm going to mask it and do it again. Yeah, maybe it's something in this particular paper because, again, both of these are different than this paper. It's the same brand though. It's still, this is the fluid brand, but it's 140 pounds. So those are the differences. The differences are that this paper has been painted and it's the 140 pound. This was just directly to the paper and it's 300 pound. So anyway, we will, yes, thank you, Emily, for hanging out and watching this demo. And hopefully we'll all learn something from it. I will continue to experiment and report back to you, but we are going to at least count one success and call this day number 23. Yes, thank you so much for joining me. And I promise I'm going to experiment some more and I'll report back to you. All right. I'll see you tomorrow morning for day number 24. And of course, let me know if you have any questions, and I will be posting about this. So have a wonderful makey day. Love you to the moon and back, and I will see you and talk to you tomorrow. Yep, for us all. Libby said learning opportunity, and always, right? Sometimes the materials do not cooperate the way that we want, and that's okay. See y'all later.